with that being said, we're going to go up to All Hail King Jesus. I know this is a pretty newer song, at least for our church. And the first thing that I really recognized in this song, and I do have a couple notes just written down, it's it's a very studio kind of song to me. It seems like a good like offering song, so something that you would do inevitably like for your tithing and or just like a side a side worship moment versus like opener of a worship service, or even you I've seen people do it obviously at our church. Even they do this song the way it's written, and it's not a bad thing. But like, even for example, the intro, right? Super long. You don't have to do the intros to every song you play, but that was just one thing I noticed right away. I was like, okay, we have to wait like 30-45 seconds for the song to actually start the progression before we can really start learning the song. But it also made me think of it being like a really good like duet song. So for example, if you've got a girl and a guy and they've been highlighted in the worship, normally, then to have them come together for an offering piece, a tithing piece, could be super, you know, good. Could be not only like an emotional experience, but especially a tithing moment. If you're sitting there and you're actually worshiping God with your tithe and your offering, and to hear a song like this and to be reminded of why we are giving and why and what God has done and what Jesus will do in your life, that just resonates with me. But to get to the musical side of it all, one thing you might have noticed in the pre-chorus, the first pre-chorus, there's actually a section, I believe it's the first half, where it only goes basically 3 times through instead of 4 times. So if we had like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, that's when it actually then repeats versus giving it another bar. So sometimes it can trip you up. Doesn't always do that. But another cool thing, in the second verse, we have this really cool bass thing. Now, normally when you're playing bass, you do add like a 5, you do add a 3, depending on where you are in the scale or what chord you're on. But what was cool about this was, even though the chords just say 1, 6, 5, 4, the bass player was playing 1, 3, 6, 1, 5, 2, 4. So he was just adding these, I almost thought of them as just ones and fives. Like, I'm playing the one note of the chord, then I'm going to the 5, one note of the next chord, 5, that chord, and so on and so forth. But after listening to it and going like, actually, you know what? It's not as obvious of the change. So I actually had to sit down and I had to listen and figure out the notes. But yeah, so for the 1, it goes to the 3, up to the 3, to the 6. Then from the 6, it goes back to the 1, but then to the 5, which is technically like a 5-1 kind of thing anyways. And then the last one, it goes actually over to the 2 and then lands on the 4 to end the section. But the intro to the bridge, I wrote a note there. I'm trying to remember what that was. I can't remember, but that's okay. But the craziest thing, this song has 3 verses, doesn't it? Let's see. 1, 2, and oh no, it doesn't. I thought it had 3. But yeah, let's see. And then the third one I said sounds like a bridge. Maybe it was the bridge. Maybe they put bridge, but it sounds like the verse. Well, we could actually listen to it. Why not? So here's that long intro. And then we get to, the chorus. Now I remember, it's 3 choruses. 3 choruses. So chorus 1, we have 1 1 1 over 3, 6 minor 4, 1 over 3 5. We go over here, we have 6 minor to the 4, which is very different. 1 5 1 3, that's similar. It's kind of like the bass idea, right? 6 to 4, 1 over 3, 2 then to 4. So that was a change. Instead of going to the 5, which kind of resolves a progression or a section, you've got the 4, which is more enticing to keep going, to lead you to another section, or it's a good landing chord too for anybody who isn't familiar with the 4 chord of a song. But last but not least, the original is actually in C, which is a decent key to play in. There's no sharps, there's no flats. It's all the white keys on the keyboard, right? But then at our church, we actually ended up playing it in either E, which is another common, at least for guitar, it's a more common key to play in on the instrument. There's a lot of easier chords to play, but then we also do it in D flat. So depending on your instrument, whether it's guitar, bass, even, if you're tuned to even low D on a bass guitar, or even a regular guitar, it's in D flat at that point. So unless you have another guitar that's tuned down a half step, or if you're lucky enough to have a 5-string bass, I should say, then you'll obviously be able to play those low notes without any issues. But just something to be mindful of, because at the end of the day, we always have to be thinking one step ahead of where the worship might go. And if the key does change to a flat or a sharp key, we have to know, okay, well, if I'm going to move up, if there's any open strings that I need, I'm going to have to capo for like a guitar player, or if it's a bass player, the worst case scenario is instead of playing a low note for the root, like let's say for example, D flat, if you're on a regular 4-string bass, you just might have to play the octave higher. So it's not at the end of the world, but it does make you think, okay, I got to be aware of that.